Hi friends, today we will be learning about 3D shapes. So we are moving from 2D shapes to 3D shapes. Before we get started on the math lesson, I highly recommend you pause the video and go searching around your house for the following shapes. A cylinder, I used a container of salt. A sphere, this is not a purpose sphere because it has holes in it, but it was the only sphere I could find. A rectangular prism, so I just used a box of oatmeal, a cube, and a cone, and I used a ice cream cone. Some other suggestions that you might have is just a tennis ball, a can of soup, a tissue box. The hardest one for me to find in my house was a cube. So if you can find a cube, that would be really great. Otherwise, you can just kind of follow along in the video and do it from memory. But if you have these objects around you, it'll make a lot more sense and make this lesson a little bit easier. So pause the video if you need to go find some things, and then when you get back, we'll get started with your visual learning video.
How do you define three-dimensional shapes? Let's find out. Three-dimensional or 3D shapes can be grouped in different ways. What is the name of this shape?
So it is the same as this. What is the name of this shape? We call it a ball, but what else is it called?
It is a sphere. This shape is a rectangular prism. This is a cylinder. This is a cube. And this is a cone. How is a cylinder different from a cone?
So if you look at my cylinder and look at my cone, what are some differences you notice between this shape and this shape? Let's find out.
A cylinder has two flat surfaces. A cone has only one. What is the shape of the flat surface on a cylinder or a cone?
So if you look,
select your answer.
If you look at the bottom of our cylinder and the top of our cylinder, what shape do you see? Do you see a circle or a rectangle? And if you look at the top of my ice cream cone, what shape do you see again? We see circles.
The flat surface of each of these shapes is a circle. These shapes have edges and vertices. Their flat surfaces are called faces. How are the faces of a rectangular prism different from the flat surfaces of a cylinder?
So, the flat surface on a cylinder was a circle. What is the flat surface on a cube? What shape is this? It's a square. On a rectangular prism, what is the shape that you see on the flat surface? A rectangle.
A rectangular prism's faces are rectangles. A cylinder's flat surfaces are circles. The faces of a cube and a rectangular prism are all rectangles. A cube is a special rectangular prism that has squares for all of its faces.
Remember, a square is a rectangle too.
How is a sphere different from all of the other 3D shapes?
How is a sphere different? It's kind of like the rules that we learned for circles earlier this week. Does it have a flat surface? No.
A sphere is a 3D shape that has no flat surfaces, no edges, and no vertices. Now you know some ways to define 3D shapes.
Awesome. So the things that we are looking for in 3D shapes, except for in a sphere, is to count the flat surfaces, edges, and vertices. All right. So we are going to look at our rectangular prism and count the faces or flat surfaces. So this is why it's really important to have these shapes with you so that you can kind of count along with me. So the faces are all the flat surfaces. And it's hard to count on a flat 2D shape. You want to be able to see it. So we are looking for the number of faces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 faces on a rectangular prism. Now we're going to count the number of vertices. So remember, the vertices are our corners. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to flip it over to the other side. 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 vertices on a rectangular prism. That is a bad 8. All right. Now the edges are on the edge of the shape, and we're going to count those next. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now make sure you don't count the ones you've already counted. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That one's hard to count because you've got to make sure you don't count an edge twice. All right, so there are 12 edges on a rectangular prism. Now, when we look at our cone, how many flat surfaces does a cone have? A cone has 1 flat surface. How many vertices does it have? 1, the tip of the cone. How many edges does it have? Does a circle have any edges? It has no edges. Good. All right, now you're going to need your sphere. We're going to count the number of faces, vertices, and edges. So remember, a sphere is a special shape. What do you know about a sphere? That it has no flat surfaces or faces. How many vertices does a sphere have? None. How many edges does a sphere have? None. A sphere is a shape with no faces or flat surfaces, vertices, or edges. The next shape you're going to need is your cube. We're going to start with the number of faces and count them. So you count them along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many faces are on a cube? 6. How how many vertices are on a cube? So what are vertices again? Corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. Flip it over to the back. 5, 6, 7, 8. How many vertices are on a cube? 8. Now edges. Remember, this one's tricky because you don't want to count an edge twice. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 12 edges on a cube. Our last shape is our cylinder. How many flat surfaces are on a cylinder? 1, 2. We just have 2 flat surfaces. Good. How many vertices? 0, because we have a circle as our flat surface, and a circle doesn't have any vertices. How many edges? 0, because again, a circle doesn't have edges. All right, our last question says, Lily has an object that looks like a 3D shape. It has 2 flat surfaces and 0 vertices. Draw the object that Lily could have. So it has 2 flat surfaces and 0 vertices. So if we look at our chart up here, which shape has 2 flat surfaces? Does a sphere have 2 flat surfaces? No. Does a cube have 2 flat surfaces? No, a cube has 6. Does a cylinder have 2 flat surfaces? Yeah, a cylinder has 2 flat surfaces. Does a cylinder have any vertices? Nope. So I think Lily has a cylinder. And I'm going to do my best to draw a cylinder. All right, first grade. So now that you have finished your visual learning and your practice, you guys are going to go in and do your quick check and interactive practice buddy. I suggest that you keep these shapes nearby because you might want to use them to help you out. If you have any questions, because I know this lesson is hard to do without touching these shapes, feel free to message Miss Barnes or myself so that we can help you. Bye, friends.